Recently, I have rediscovered my passion for marantas. I'm saying rediscover because I started collecting some of them 3 or 4 years ago, but I never really had great success with them. And then I kind of forgot about marantas existing until I picked up a lemon lime maranta about a year ago. And it grew super well for me out in my greenhouse over the growing season. And then over winter, I had to take her inside. And I decided to put her in my forest over here, which is this plant stand with integrated lights. And I really enjoyed the look of my maranta in here, so I decided to get all of the other cultivars and varieties I could find. And a few months later, this is what my maranta collection looks like. And it's been such a rewarding growth journey over here because these plants just look so amazing, and it's the first thing I see when I enter my house. And in today's video, I want to show you my maranta collection because I'm really proud of them. And of course, I'm going to share with you all of my tips and tricks. Hey everybody, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, and welcome back to a very different video. You guys know me for my big plants, my moss poles, my gardening. I don't often talk about marantas. I don't think I've ever spoken about marantas on my channel, but as I mentioned in the intro, 3 to 4 years ago, I actually had a little maranta phase where I started getting some marantas and everything was going well until spider mites. I eventually kind of just lost all of my marantas, and yeah, I kind of just forgot about them and moved on until I found that lemon lime maranta that I was talking about, which is this one over here. Oh, I can't even see the star of the show. Anyway, don't worry, I will take them all out and show you in a little bit more detail. Anyway, so I found that at a really good price. I think I went shopping with AJ and I was like, oh my god, I always wanted a lemon lime maranta. It was that cultivar of maranta that I was looking for 3 to 4 years ago, and they weren't even in the country. So when I saw them finally being available, I got it, and then it had a phenomenal growing season in my greenhouse. And that's kind of really reignited my passion for it, or reignited my desire to try again. And oh well, if I like something, I usually go quite hard. So by now I've got a few marantas. And they've had a great time even during winter, and they've been growing over here. So let's talk about that forest a little bit more, and then maybe we'll go back to my normal filming location because I think this is a little bit cramped. Anyway, so this is the mother forest, and I've got a full review of this as well. I enjoy it. I really enjoy the look, and hopefully I can take you a bit closer via B-roll. But a little heads up, it's quite an expensive product as well. But the idea here really is that it's a nice display of pots, and each pot has a little integrated grow light. And they're only 10 watts as well. Anyway, I don't want to talk too much about the forest. I'll leave the review in the description down below if you want to check it out. But let's have a closer look at the actual plants. That's better. I was getting a little bit nervous over there in that little cramped space. Hopefully the B-roll kind of puts it in perspective. Now the stand technically comes with 8 pots, but I only have 6 marantas in there because 2 pots, I suppose, are at the top, so they don't have a grow light above them. So I'm waiting for one of my marantas to trail a lot, and then it will move up so that the leaves that trail down can then take advantage of the grow light, right? Anyway, work in progress, but I'm determined to turn this entire stand into like a maranta display because I think they're just a perfect plant for it. Now, one thing that's a little bit annoying with that stand is that I don't have all too much flexibility with the height between the pots because they're all cabled together. So I can't have super tall plants in there. I'm also limited by the pot size over here. Let me bring an empty pot. These are the pots that kind of go onto the forest. It locks in. There's like a little ball on the stand, and then you can just pop it on here so it sticks in place. But I can maximum fit a 12 centimeter pot in here, and it can't be too deep either, right? So it needs to be quite shallow. So I've been looking for plants that can grow really nice and lush, so really fill up the stand while not needing all too much rooting volume, and Marantas seem to work really well for that. And then also the light seems to really work for Marantas. They're 10 watts each or 5 watts each. I'll put it on screen. Basically, they're not super strong, so I'm not worried about too much light, and quite clearly based on the growth that we'll see soon, I don't think it's too much light, but if I would feel like it would turn my Marantas crispy, I could always turn it down. So I've been looking for the perfect plant for that stand for a while. Plus, there's one thing that I really appreciate about Marantas, and it's the reason why they're also called prayer plants. Throughout the day, they actually move, they pray. So during the day, they look like this, and then towards sunset during night, when the lights eventually turn off, the plant folds all of its leaves up, so it looks like it's kind of praying hands basically. So that's where Marantas also got the common name prayer plants from, and that is something really nice to observe every day, right? It's that stand is kind of in that, see over there where it gets dark in my hallway. It's the darkest part of the house, so if it wasn't for the grow lights that are integrated in the stand, nothing would grow there. And it's a really narrow space, but it's a space that I walk past a lot, right? So it is a space that I always see from the kitchen, from my office, when I come in. That's the first thing that everybody sees when they come and visit me. So I really wanted to turn it into a feature. And for the longest time, I just used it for propagating plants and had cuttings in there and so on. But I'm now really happy I found this solution. And I think it looks stunning. Now, do you need to use exactly that stand to achieve that? Obviously not. I've seen more cost-effective versions online. Do they look as aesthetically pleasing? I suppose personal preference. I do really like the sleek design of the mother forest, and I think it really makes the plants shine. All right, now let's dig a little bit deeper into Marantas. Now, I don't have that much knowledge about them, and it's not my usual plant to grow. It is not an aeroid. It is not in the Ericeae family. It's in the Marantaceae family. Marantaceae? I don't know how to pronounce this. But it has the word Maranta in it, right? Yeah, Marantaceae. Let's call it Marantaceae. Let's call it Marantaceae. Maranta is the genus, and then there are different species. And I've done a little bit of research leading up to this video, but more than happy to be corrected in the comment section down below. I believe that the common prayer plant is Maranta leucanora. I don't know. I don't think I'm pronouncing any of this right, but I'll put it all on screen, okay? And then within that species, there's lots of cultivars, and they often come with common names. So today we are mainly focusing on the common names. Look, I'm not trying to do a PhD on Maranta over here. I'm trying to just show off some really nice Marantas. And I do think common names can vary across countries for sure, but I actually found this really cool graphic on Reddit. Shout out to chlorobase.com for putting that together. And I happen to have most of these. So let's just be guided by that little graphic, and I'll show you those. Now, what that means though is that they're all cultivars. They're all basically the same species at the end of the day. Thus, they should all have pretty similar care requirements. But I really want to show you my Marantas first, and then we can talk about how I care for them. Let's show you something nice. And I want to start off with my lemon lime, because that's the one that kind of kickstarted this passion again. Now, it's not looking its absolute best anymore, because I actually let it dry out a lot by accident. It was completely curled up. And then when I rehydrated it, some leaves came back, but a majority of the leaves started kind of dying. So you can see a lot of carnage down there, but it is now regrowing really well. You can see that, for example, over here, they just like to reshoot from the pot. See, this just came straight from the pot, these two. This one as well as this one. Now they grow from little rhizomes, so they almost look like little potatoes in the ground as well. So they'll just reshoot. And it's also quite common for them to go dormant if you do expose them to cold temperatures, but they did not go dormant for me. indoors. Because I let this dehydrate too much, I was a bit worried it might not come back. It actually really surprised me about how well it came back, but that's why I decided to pick up another one the other day. And I'm now deciding to grow this one in my greenhouse now that the conditions outside are good again, and I keep this one inside. They grow really well in my greenhouse, and I'm not surprised. They are ultimately a tropical plant. They like to grow on the forest floor in the tropics, so they love the conditions in my greenhouse. Now what I found really interesting over here is that, have a look at these two leaves that are pointing at you over here. Now they're the same plant, but it shows really differently, right? So this one that I'm pointing at right now has just mainly veining, whereas this one has this little bit of yellow in the middle as well. But back in the days, it still had this yellow in the middle as well, right? So at some stage it decided to kind of not have this yellow in the middle anymore. You know what I mean? Am I talking, does this make sense? Maybe these leaves are a little bit nicer. Look at these, it's really just the vein. Whereas previous leaves to that still had this middle bit. Surely you can see the difference between these two leaves over here, right? So I thought that was quite interesting, and I suppose that's maybe how these cultivars have been selected for. Seems like this plant maybe naturally wants to vary quite a lot, at least from my experience. And again, this is not a PhD, it's really just my observation. But this plant wasn't always like that. It just recently started being like that. And I don't know if that's because of the light that's different, or if there's some environmental factor that kind of caused that, or if that is just a natural mutation or a natural variety. I don't know, but I'm here for it. Ugh, I love the lemon lime. I just think it's so stunning. And yeah, this one as well, super stunning. Again, you can see how many are just coming out of the pot over there. So they get lush really quickly. And yeah, stunning. They obviously fade a little bit over time, but yeah, I think the lemon lime is one of my absolute favorites. Next up, a stunner, an OG, the red vein Maranta. That was actually the first Maranta I ever had. This is not the original one. I don't know where the original one went, obviously no longer with me. But I repurchased this not too long ago, and it is still in the original tiny pot. Oh, it came from AJ. It's still in the tiny pot. I think this is maybe a 10 centimeter pot, but look at the amount of leaves that it has for this tiny pot. That's why it makes such a perfect plant for the forest, because this pot doesn't even max out this planter over here. Now, while I've got you here, this pot basically hovers in here because there is this little notch at the bottom, right? So there's this little mount in the pot, which is perfect. So when I put it here, it doesn't sit flat to the bottom of the pot, meaning that I can water my plants and excess water just accumulates in that little pot over here without the plants sitting in it. So there's great drainage and aeration, and it makes it really easy for me to water the plants without having to take them out of the forest. So that's great. All right, the red one, I think really stunning. I mean, the lime green center, then the red veins, the red backs as well. So this is a stunning one when it does its little folding up at night. It just looks so stunning because you get visibility of the red backs. Yeah, and I mean, it's looking really lush. I have never propagated this plant, but you can see this plant is starting to propagate itself and push out new leaves from within the pot here. I think there's so many leaves in the way. This young one over here, this cute one. But they also split over here and then grow new leaves here, new here. So it really likes to split itself, and I find Marantas to kind of naturally create really nice lush displays without me really needing to try. But you can also quite easily propagate them. Oh my god, this one is so stunning. So pretty. This one is my variegated Maranta. Let's have a look, see over here. Now this one I believe is Maranta Leucanora variety Kirschwelle variegata. And I do have the non-variegated one in my garden, but that went dormant over winter, so there's nothing to show for at the moment, but maybe I can find a video or photo from last year. It grows really well in my garden. Maranta is thriving still. Happy days. Now this is also a newish addition. And again, you can see it's in quite a small pot, and see these roots coming out? That is because down here, can you see this? You can hear it. I watered this recently and a little bit of excess water is accumulating here. Now the pot is not sitting in water, but roots are attracted to water. So sometimes these roots can grow out of the pot and into the water that's sitting here. Not bad at all. Your marantas definitely don't want to dry out. Now have a look at how lush this plant is. It's just reshooting from the base. And I should probably give this a little bit more medium. It's looking a little bit empty. Can you see this? Yeah, I should probably give this a little top up. Now I really enjoy this. It is such a nice pop of color and a really easy grower as well. And I think these sort of leaves are just stunning. And especially when the variegation hits these little black dots, the dots become red. Very scientific explanation. Silver band Maranta, absolutely shooting the lights out. So this one clearly has quite large leaves compared to the other one. So this one grows quite large and it has this silver band in the middle and then also the silver veining. You can see it a little bit here maybe. There was a little bit of like burgundy almost. When spring first hit and the temperatures got warmer and the leaves started growing a little bit, it had a little bit of sun stress almost. This really came out as purple, but that has been fading. But you can see the purple is represented in the undersides. So again, a stunning one at nighttime when it folds up. Really beautiful. Again, so incredibly lush. I didn't propagate that. This plant just naturally wants to grow like that. And obviously, it is also flowering heaps. And how cute are these teeny tiny flowers over here. I love it. Silver band Maranta was one of the ones that I really wanted to get my hands on back in the days, and I managed to do so. But I never managed to successfully grow it. But after I had my success with the lemon lime Maranta, this was one of the first ones I really wanted to get back. Really happy with that. Love how lush it is. Look, the whole idea is that it covers the whole forest eventually. That I don't see the forest, but that I only see Maranta. Now this is in a really tight fitting pot. Now that pot fits into this planter perfectly. That's exactly what I mean, but it hovers. So again, I can water, and water is going to accumulate in the pot over here, so it's never going to sit in water, making my watering experience very simple. Now over here is a little propagation that I took off my silver band Maranta, and I'm going to put this one in my greenhouse. But all I did with this propagation is I cut at the node as you normally would. Let's take this for example over here. I could cut the stem over here, and then this over here is the node where it starts splitting into the leaves, right? You probably can't see anything. This one over here is the node. So I would cut it here and make sure that this node is submerged in water. And after a few weeks, you've got really nice roots. They're really fine, but quite plentiful. So I've always propagated my Marantas in water, and it worked a treat. Over here, I've got some silver band Maranta. I'll come a bit closer. I've just been propagating it in water and it has nice roots, so I'm gonna pot this up. But this one does not go into my normal air void mix. This one I'll actually put in a other mix. This mix is equal parts cocoa peat, perlite and worm castings. So it has much more water retention, is much finer, has no big chunks, right? If you look at this, it's just very fine. Versus the air void mix that is like super chunky. Now, because it's so fine, it has less aeration and drainage, but the perlite still adds some aeration and drainage, but specifically it just has much better water retention, which these super fine roots of a Maranta would appreciate. But it still drains well, right? You always need drainage, so that's why I always put perlite in here, but it's really fine perlite as well, which was actually by accident, but is what it is. Sweet. Let's see how easy it is. Maranta cat's mustache. Bring you a bit closer. You can see much darker. Also has the beautiful burgundy underneath. Again, you can see, this one you can maybe see a little bit of the reddish tone being present when it first comes out, but it then kind of fades. Again, a really compact plant. Ability to grow quite large leaves, but even when it grows smaller leaves, where was they, like here, they're so cute. Again, really lush, really beautiful. New leaves popping out everywhere, flowers everywhere. And again, a really nice tight fit with the pot, and you can see all of the roots coming out the bottom over here, attracted to water. Not a bad thing at all. And my newest addition is Maranta Light Vein. Was unaware of this existing up until a couple of weeks ago. When it arrived, it wasn't potted up. It just came with the roots. There was a little bit, I think it was in moss. So I potted it up straight away, and it's already been enjoying its new home. I mean, this is crazy. Look at this veining. With more light exposure, I noticed these black dots becoming more dominant as well, but they do fade over time. But I just think this is such a cool color and so intricate. Like, look at these, just so pretty. And again, growing quite lush. You can see how so many shoots are just coming out of the pot. Again, here's a node, so I could cut this here and propagate it if I want to, but I don't want to. Alrighty, here we are. Probably not the best way to display them all, but hopefully you can kind of see the beauty of them. Now, there's one missing that I used to have that I was not able to get my hands on just yet. I'll keep an eye out, and when I find it, I'll buy it. And that's the black Maranta. Looks kind of similar to the silver band or the cat's moustache, but when you put them next to each other, you definitely see a difference. Like, nothing crazy, but I do have the desire to kind of complete the collection. So I would love to get my hands on a black Maranta again when I find one, but I'm also not in a rush. I'm very happy with my collection at the moment, and yeah, it escalated quite quickly. But it's a good time of the year. Let's talk about the conditions and the care for these plants a little bit more. As I mentioned earlier already, they do prefer a tropical environment, so they do not want to be exposed to cold temperatures. I definitely avoid anything under 15 degrees. If it goes under 15 degrees, chances are that they will go dormant, which is okay. They can always come back out of dormancy, right? But if you don't want them to go dormant, I would aim for a range between 16 to 25. So basically, kind of home conditions, right? The sort of conditions that we human would naturally enjoy anyway. So I think that makes them quite a good houseplant. Now, from my experience, they definitely appreciate the higher humidity. They definitely grow much better in my greenhouse than they grow indoors, because I can keep my greenhouse at about 90% humidity, at least during the growing season. During winter, I ease off on misting in there to avoid fungal issues. And in the greenhouse, they absolutely shoot the lights out. High humidity where possible. If you cannot provide high humidity, you might experience some crisping on the leaves. Now, the other thing that might make your leaves go crispy is if you let your plant dry out a little bit too much. I do not recommend letting Marantas dry out at all. They can show you when they need water by curling up. I mean, obviously the new leaves are always curled up, but I mean, if the existing leaves start being really curly, that means that it is getting dehydrated. I personally try and not let it get that far, because I've noticed that if you let it get that far, yes, some of the leaves will rehydrate, but you're probably going to lose about 20% of the leaves or so, right? Not all will make it. So if that is your routine and you always let it dry out a little bit, then you're constantly losing leaves instead of just making the plant lusher. I've never really experienced any issues with overwatering these plants, but that is because I still have good drainage. And I think I showed you that with most of these plants as well. Just the setup in which they're in, where the pot doesn't sit at the bottom of the planter, but rather hovers, that enables great drainage in the first place. Okay, so I can water more frequently to ensure that there's no drying out period, because I'm also not necessarily concerned about them sitting in water, because the setup eliminates that. And of course, I'm also choosing a well-draining mix. Now, most of these are actually still in the mix that they came in from the nursery, which is usually quite water retentive, because nurseries would grow these in greenhouses at high temperatures and they don't want them to dry out. Right? So normally I do not like to use normal potting mix because it has too much water retention for my aeroids, but these Marantas have super fine roots that can't tolerate drying out. So the potting mix seems to work really well for them. When I repot them myself though, like like I did with the newest edition over here, for example. I use the exact same soil recipe that I use for my oxalis, for example. Oxalis also has really, really tiny, fine roots and really does not want to dry out. And the mix is basically equal parts of cocoa peat, worm castings and perlite. Cocoa peat and worm castings have great water retention. Perlite adds aeration and drainage. And then the worm castings also are organic nutrients. So nutrients are also provided to this plant. Now the frequency of watering, I can't give you an exact frequency, and I think I've been quite vocal on plants not working on schedules, right? But I suppose it also really depends, right? Do you have a plant with a lot of quite large leaves, or do you have a still smaller plant that could be planted in the same pot with the same medium but only have to support about 50% of the leaves, right? So obviously it would then also use 50% of the water and so on. So there is no hard and fast rule, but I would say on average I probably water them every 4 to 5 days. Again, I'm more liberal with the watering over here because of the setup and because it's kind of less work. But of course, that is more so at the moment. At the moment it's been quite warm and it's been really dry. During winter it's been really cold and wet, and then I might only water every 8 days or so. Again, just an indication, definitely not a rule. Always assess and then act accordingly, and you can actually just stick your finger in the mix, and if the mix feels dry, you can water. Just make sure that it doesn't sit in water. Now think about it, in nature they would crawl along the forest floor where it's always wet, right? It wouldn't really dry out on the forest floor in the rainforest, but also on the rainforest floor, the plant wouldn't have access to all too much light. So they really like dappled light, which makes them a great indoor plant. You do not need to provide that much light. I think I'm definitely overdoing it with the grow lights that I've got. They wouldn't need that amount of light, but because I am giving them quite a lot of light, I see them frequently flowering and I see them grow really, really fast and with quite large leaves, which I very much enjoy. So they can clearly handle that sort of light and they seem to really enjoy the consistency of the light. But my Maranta also handled quite harsh light in my greenhouse last year. Now I'm trying to avoid direct sun. Maybe a little bit of morning sun or afternoon sun is okay, but overall I would go more on the conservative side when it comes to light. So again, another reason why these make great houseplants. Now I do still provide my GT Foliage Focus with every watering, not because it needs it, because it does have the worm castings in the mix. It's just because I'm lazy and I just pre-mix big batches of my water with nutrients, and then I'll walk around my whole house and water everything. So they're just part of the normal rotation. So that's why they also get some GT Foliage Focus. So I suppose I'm providing them with plenty of nutrients and they're enjoying it. Overall, it seems really easy, right? I think the hardest part with Marantas for me personally, and that's where I struggled historically, was fighting the spider mites. And from my experience, they're all crazy spider mite magnets. So once a month, I take them into my garden and I spray them thoroughly with water, give them a shower, clean their leaves, right? Just with water, just thoroughly hose it down from all sides. There's just so many leaves and they're all overlapping and so on. It's kind of hard, right? It's a great maze for spider mites to hide in if they want to. If I actively see spider mites, I also spray it with killamite, but I haven't had any over the last 4 to 5 months. Touch wood. Maybe that's because of winter as well. In summer, I'm definitely expecting frequent spider mite infestations. So maybe taking them out almost weekly for a thorough clean and water might be a better idea, or at least every 2 weeks. Or I can just keep going with my lazy approach, keep them in the forest while I water them once a month, take it outside, and then hopefully fight the spider mites effectively. But yeah, be proactive with your spider mite approach over here and just clean the leaves. Clean leaves also help photosynthesize and just in general make a healthy plant. But spider mites would be my #1 thing to look out for. Then I think the second reason why you might not have success with Marantas might be low humidity. I don't think these will look really, really stunning in a low humidity environment, but to be honest, I haven't really experienced that before. Sydney is naturally quite humid. I think the last few weeks we've had only about 40%, which really is an exception. On average, I would say it's more 60% humidity. So I think that suits them really well. But maybe we can learn from each other in the comments down below. Is anybody growing Marantas in a drier environment, and do you have success with it? And I think that's really all I wanted to say about these. I mean, it is still early days because I feel like we haven't gone through a full 12 months together. I mean, at some stage, a few years ago, but I mean, in this second iteration of my Maranta obsession, we haven't gone through all the seasons just yet, so see how we go. Things can always go wrong, you know. Just because I've had great success with them historically doesn't mean that I will have great success with them going forward. But for now, I am just really, really excited. And it's been a long time that I felt actually that excited about plants, especially plants that are not aeroids. It's been a long time that I've actually really like wanted to go out and like hunt specific species or cultivars or varieties or whatever they might be called. By the way, if I said anything wrong, feel free to correct me in the comments down below. As I mentioned, I do not have a PhD in Maranta, I just have an obsession for them. So yeah, it is still early days, but I'm so excited every time I walk past my plant stand and see all of my Marantas. I really wanted to share it with you to hopefully get you excited about growing Marantas as well. And hopefully we can turn the comment section into a little bit of a Maranta case study, troubleshooting, care guide, and so on. So in the comments down below, let me know whereabouts in the world are you, or don't let me know, let everybody know. Whereabouts in the world are you, and do you have success with Marantas? What are your conditions? Is it more dry? Is it more humid? Give us the top tips basically. What do you do? Do you do anything different to me? Do you have any top tips for each other? I suppose if you're in Sydney, you can just replicate what I've done, but if you live somewhere else, maybe having tips from somebody who lives local to you might be more helpful. Also, if you're in Sydney, where can I get a black Maranta from? Thank you in advance. In the comments down below, I think it would just be appropriate to leave a little praying emoji. Also, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And hopefully I'll see you in my next video. Bye!